"Mom, you ruined everything." That's what my son told me the night he made me pack my things. After everything I gave up for him, he still looked me in the eye like I was the problem. And you know what hurts the most? I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just stood there and realized they never saw me as a mother, just a woman who stayed too long. I used to think sacrifice meant something, that giving up your life for someone else would one day come full circle. That's what kept me going. My name is Margaret. I'm 70 years old, and I raised my son Derek completely on my own. His father passed when he was just 6, and from that moment on, it was just the two of us against the world. I worked double shifts at the hospital, skipped meals, and missed holidays, just to make sure he never went without. When Derek was 19, he got into a motorcycle accident, a bad one. I remember the way the doctors looked at me when they brought him in. They didn't say it, but I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. So I sold our house, the one my late husband built with his own 2 hands. It wasn't just walls and floors, it was memories. But I gave it up without blinking, used the money, over $160,000, to pay the medical bills and get Derek a fresh start. Eventually, he recovered, got married, had a daughter. I was proud, maybe even too proud. So when they asked if I wanted to come live with them, I thought, this is the reward. I'm finally being brought back into the circle. But the guest room they gave me wasn't really a room. It was a converted storage space next to the boiler, with no windows and one rickety twin bed. I didn't complain. I told myself, this is temporary. I'm just here to help. And I did. I cooked every meal, cleaned every dish, and looked after my granddaughter full-time so her parents could work. I paid for groceries out of my own savings. I even gave them money when Derek said his hours were cut. No one asked me to. No one said thank you either. But I still believed, foolishly, that love would be enough. Until one evening, when everything I'd held inside for years finally cracked. Not with a scream or a fight, but with one sentence from my own son. "You've caused nothing but problems since you got here." I didn't know it then, but that moment was the beginning of the end. It started with something small, like it always does. My granddaughter, Emily, had the flu. She was tired, fussy, and didn't want to eat. I let her watch cartoons while I folded laundry nearby. I thought maybe it would distract her, give her a little comfort. When Derek came home and saw her curled up on the couch, he snapped, "You let her stare at a screen all day? That's why she's getting sick again." Before I could open my mouth, his wife jumped in. "You're supposed to help, not make things worse, Margaret. You said you raised a kid? Well, you're doing a pretty bad job this time." I stood there holding a dish towel, heart thudding in my chest. I wasn't used to yelling in that house, at least not directed at me. "I was just trying to keep her calm," I said softly. "That's always your excuse," Derek muttered, shaking his head. "You never take responsibility. You just insert yourself and everything falls apart." Insert myself? I gave up everything so he could live. I left my job, sold my home, and walked away from every dream I ever had. And now, I was the problem. That night, they didn't speak to me at dinner. They didn't even set a plate for me. I sat in the laundry room, my room, and ate crackers from my purse. Later, I overheard them in the kitchen. Derek's voice low, tense. "She's not helping anymore. She's interfering." Then his wife. "We gave her a place to stay. That should have been enough." Enough? I stayed up that night staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the dryer next to my bed. The air was heavy with something I couldn't name yet, but deep down, I knew the shift had begun, and it was only going to get worse. It started with something small, like it always does. My granddaughter, Emily, had the flu. She was tired, fussy, and didn't want to eat. I let her watch cartoons while I folded laundry nearby. I thought maybe it would distract her, give her a little comfort. When Derek came home and saw her curled up on the couch, he snapped. "You let her stare at a screen all day? That's why she's getting sick again." Before I could open my mouth, his wife jumped in. "You're supposed to help, not make things worse, Margaret. You said you raised a kid. Well, you're doing a pretty bad job this time." I stood there holding a dish towel, heart thudding in my chest. I wasn't used to yelling in that house. At least, not directed at me. "I was just trying to keep her calm," I said softly. "That's always your excuse," Derek muttered, shaking his head. "You never take responsibility. You just insert yourself, and everything falls apart." Insert myself? I gave up everything so he could live. I left my job, sold my home, and walked away from every dream I ever had. And now, I was the problem. That night, they didn't speak to me at dinner. They didn't even set a plate for me. I sat in the laundry room, my room, and ate crackers from my purse. Later, I overheard them in the kitchen. Derek's voice, low, tense. "She's not helping anymore. She's interfering." Then his wife. "We gave her a place to stay. That should have been enough." Enough? I stayed up that night staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the dryer next to my bed. The air was heavy with something I couldn't name yet. But deep down, I knew the shift had begun. And it was only going to get worse. Let me ask you something. Have you ever given everything to someone, your time, your love, your life, and still felt like a burden? If you have, tell me in the comments. Sometimes, just knowing someone else understands changes everything. I didn't cry that night, not yet, but I think a part of me stopped hoping. I didn't pack my things all at once. That would have made it feel too real. At first, I just took my pill case and a pair of socks. Then my photo album, then the old bracelet my husband gave me on our 25th anniversary. Little by little, I tucked pieces of myself into a tote bag I kept under the bed. No one noticed. The days after that fight blurred together. Derek didn't speak to me unless it was a complaint. His wife started locking the kitchen at night. And Emily, my sweet granddaughter, she wouldn't even look at me anymore. Someone had told her I was dangerous. I could see it in her eyes. Then came the final moment. I was folding laundry like always, trying to stay quiet, when I heard my daughter-in-law on the phone in the next room. "She's still here. I don't know why she hasn't gotten the message. Honestly, we're just waiting for her to leave. It's pathetic." I didn't move. I didn't gasp or cry. I just stood there with a towel in my hand and realized I had no place left in that house. That night, I packed the rest. A few clothes, my purse, a small envelope with $2,000 in cash I'd saved over the years. I zipped the bag and sat on the bed for a long time, staring at the door like it was holding me hostage. And then I opened it. The house was quiet. No one in the hallway. No lights on. I passed Derek's office. The door was cracked. He was watching TV with his headphones in, laughing at something on the screen. He didn't look up. I passed Emily's room. Her door was closed, music playing faintly behind it. No one stopped me. When I stepped outside, the air hit cold. But I didn't feel it. I didn't have a plan, no car, no one to call. I just walked. One bag, one coat, one heart that had nothing left to break. That's how I left. No screaming, no begging, just silence. And as I walked into the night, I thought, they didn't throw me out. They made sure I'd choose to go, so they wouldn't feel guilty. That's how cowards operate. I didn't miss the house. I missed the sound of my granddaughter laughing in the mornings. I missed the clink of dishes I washed after dinner. I missed believing I was still part of something that mattered. But I didn't miss the way they looked at me, like I was a weight they couldn't wait to drop. The room I rented behind the diner wasn't much. One window, a shaky bed, and walls thin enough to hear the waitress next door singing off-key every night. But for the first time in years, I could breathe. Then, 3 weeks after I left, I got a knock at the door. I knew that knock. I opened it and found Derek standing there in a wrinkled dress shirt, dark circles under his eyes. "Mom," he said, "we need to talk." He didn't hug me, didn't apologize, just walked past me like he still lived there. "I need you to sign something," he said, laying out a folder on the table. "The mortgage company's holding the funds. Something about the land title still being in your name." I didn't speak. I just stared at the paper, then at him. "You never transferred it?" he asked, almost annoyed. "We can't refinance unless you sign this." Ah, so that's what this was. Not a visit, not a reunion, just business. "You remember what I used the money from the old house for?" I asked quietly. He blinked. "What does that have to do with this?" "I sold that home to pay your hospital bills, Derek. Everything I had. And then I used what was left to help build the foundation for your new place. That land? It was mine." He looked at me like I was talking in a different language. "You're seriously going to block this deal? You know we're behind on payments." I picked up the paper. Read it slowly. It was a transfer of ownership. Clean. Silent. No rights left for me after signing. "No," I said, placing it back down. "I'm not signing anything." "Are you serious?" "Dead serious." He stood up hard, chair scraping the floor. "So you're gonna let us drown after everything?" I looked him in the eye. "After everything?" I said. "You mean after calling me a burden? Locking the kitchen? Watching me walk out like I was nothing?" He didn't answer. "You didn't lose me by accident, Derek. You gave me away." He left without another word, and I finally understood. He never thought I'd say no. That was the real shift. Not when I left his house, but when I finally stopped asking for space in his life and started reclaiming my own. The day after Derek stormed out, I went to the legal aid office with a grocery bag full of documents and a knot in my stomach the size of a fist. It wasn't about revenge. I wasn't trying to win. I just wanted to make sure I couldn't be erased again. Quietly. Legally. The woman who helped me was named Miss Harlow. Sharp eyes. No nonsense. But kind. She let me explain everything at my own pace. How I paid for the land. How I was never informed of the mortgage deal. How I'd been pushed out of my own life. I showed her the deed. The account statements. Even the faded photo of the old house I sold to help my son walk again. "You still legally own the land," she said, flipping through the file. "Your son can't transfer or refinance anything without your consent, and even if he could, you're under no obligation to help him." I nodded. I didn't smile. It didn't feel like a victory. It felt like air finally returning to my lungs. We drew up paperwork to place the land in a simple trust in Emily's name. It wouldn't take effect until she turned 21, but until then, it would be protected, untouchable, even by Derek. That night, I made soup on my little stovetop and sat by the window with my feet up, watching the streetlights flicker through the diner sign. I felt still. Not happy, not sad, just still. Like the noise in my head had finally gone quiet. 2 days later, Emily showed up. She was standing outside my door, with a small backpack, her eyes red, a cab idling behind her. I opened the door without saying a word. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I wrapped my arms around her, and for the first time in a long while, neither of us said anything we didn't mean. She told me they'd been fighting again, that her mom called her ungrateful, that her dad said I brainwashed her even though I hadn't spoken to her since I left. "They told me not to come," she said. So I did. We made tea. She sat on the bed, legs crossed, drinking slowly like she was trying to believe the moment was real. "I don't want to go back," she said quietly. "Can I stay here?" I nodded. "Only if that's what you want." She smiled, not big, but real, the kind of smile that meant safety. I didn't know what came next. I didn't have a big plan, but I had her, and that was more than enough to begin again. It's been 3 months. The apartment still smells like coffee and old books, and Emily still forgets to screw the cap back on the milk. But there's laughter now, quiet, honest laughter that floats between the walls instead of bouncing off them. No one from the old house has knocked on my door. Not Derek, not his wife, not even a lawyer. They didn't lose me by accident. They gave me away. Emily's in school again. She brings home drawings, stories, little bits of light. She calls this place home without hesitation. One morning, she asked me if I hated her parents. I told her no. I just stopped giving them power over how I see myself. That's the truth. I didn't win anything flashy. No courtroom speech, no public apology. But I got something better. Peace. And a granddaughter who chooses to stay. To you, watching this, have you ever had to walk away to remember your worth? If this story touched something in you, tell me below. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You just need to know when silence is the strongest thing you own.